God, saints, this is Truth Speaker, giving honor and glory to the God of my life. And this video is a quick vid in response to President Obama's remark on how barbaric the roots of Christianity being, of how barbaric were the Christian crusades or the Spanish Inquisition. And I would just like to correct Mr. Obama that Jesus was not involved in any Christian crusades, and he knew nothing about the Inquisition. And the name of this is Mr. Obama. Jesus never had a slave, and he knew nothing about the Christian crusades. The troubling statement by Mr. Obama I would like to first say, he said Christian crusades sarcastically, but he has trouble saying radical Islam. You have Christians today who radical Islam, they're Christians or shall I say children of God, are being killed and slaughtered this very day. Do you know that? But he doesn't speak on that, does he? It looks as though he's trying to appease the people of Middle Eastern origin. And another thing I would like to add that Mr. President, when you make a remark such as that, you've troubled a lot of people. Now, the Christian crusades were about as Christian as a starving lion, or the Islamic regime that were butchering, slaughtering their way across the Middle East at that time. I would like to add, now we know the Christian Crusades was, the first one started in 1095 in response to Pope Urban II call to arms to rid the Holy Land of the Islamic army. We know that. But when the Christian Crusades left, they butchered and slaughtered just like the Islamic army did. So what was and I mean, they were, the Christian Crusades, they were really barbaric. The point of Mr. Obama, there was nothing, I repeat, there was nothing Christian about it. Christ had nothing to do with any type of Christian crusade. And they had, how many they had? About three of them? Christ had nothing to do with that. And for God's sakes, the good Lord had nothing to do with any Spanish Inquisition. Jesus said, "He who is not with me is against me, and he who does not gathereth scattereth." Jesus also said, "He who lives by the sword shall die by it." So it's troubling when you get before the whole world platform and make these comparisons in which there is no comparisons. There are many who call themselves children of God, but there are very few who actually are children of God. You could tell a tree by the fruit that it bears, Mr. Obama. And as far as the slave inquisition, as far as the slave trade, the East African and Sub-Saharan slave trade practiced by the Arabs were almost 12 to 1500 years before the Europeans even stepped foot there. I just want to declare that up. Why don't you go look? I'm not calling any name. I would say one. Even their own Islamic writers held in high esteem. Ibn Khaldun. There's money. All you have to do is Google it. I'll just put that. I have names all over the place. I'm not going to call any name. I just called one. Do you know that the Atlantic slave trade, as brutal as it was, only 10% perished in the Middle Passage from West Africa to the Americas. In contrast, over a 1200-year period before the Europeans got there, 80 to 90% of all slaves that were taken in sieges out of Africa, who were caravaned through the East African and Sub-Saharan slave trade, do you know 80 to 90% died along the way or were murdered? Even babies were snatched out of mother's arm as they were carrying ivory and loads of goods. They're slaughtered. They were skin and bones. Their feet were double the size. They were a pathetic wretch to look at. And this I quoted from an ancient writer of that time. But then again, I'm not surprised. Nobody should be surprised what you said, because Mr. Obama, you said in a speech that this is not a Christian nation. It may not be, but for you to get up and make a contrast. But do you notice how many Arab abolitionists have you ever heard? Did you see any Arabs walking in the civil rights movement of any age? Did you see them try to free a slave, Mr. Obama, since you brought this up? No. Every nation in ancient history up until the present day have had slaves, Mr. Obama. But the purpose of slaves going to, I'll put it this way, the slaves going to the Middle East were 2 women to every 1 male. They went there for, well, you know, to be concubines for the most part. And in contrast, going to the Americas, it was 2 men to every woman. They were going to work in the fields and such. But do you know, in comparison, that the few males that did make it to the Middle East, they were castrated. And 90% of the few of all that were castrated, they died. I mean, they were horribly mutilated. They were bodies stacked up high. So it was. That's why even today you have a small African communities throughout the Middle East. So what I was saying, Mr. President, all I'm going to say is this. We can see that you do not believe in God according to the Bible. Just because somebody say they're a Christian does not mean that they are. I'll repeat it one last time, Mr. President. Most people, the Christian Crusades, were about as Christ-like in their actions as Satan is. Okay? So now that we clear that up, folks, I would like to add, it's best to do research before we vote for these people. The Constitution is being stepped on. People are going away from God. I mean, what's left? We're going to be involved in a major military conflict, and the very freedoms that we fought for, and your children, even now to this day, are just coming out of war in the Middle East, is disappearing. You're being monitored, spied on, and Congress is just... These people need to be impeached. Every congressman and senator up there need to be impeached. If you're not for the Constitution of America, get out of office. These people, we're voting for people that are destroying America. The middle class is almost wiped out. We're fighting in wars. We have no hopes of winning. You can't beat an idea with a bullet. Mr. President got before a Council of African Americans, if that's what you want to call yourself, and said, tighten up your laces. He is not the president of Black America. But he didn't say he's not the president of the homosexuals when he went over to their meeting and keep going over to them. He didn't tell that to the immigrants. I'm not the president of the immigrants. So Black America, let's wake up, and we going in the wrong. We have gone in the wrong direction, and we don't have time left. Get on your knees, ask the Lord to forgive you of your sins and direction. And everybody pray for our nation, because we're going in the wrong direction. God bless.